I think the dividing factor there is like fame and success, right? Like you can have fame and not be successful, and you can be successful and not have fame, right? That's certainly a stigma I think that comes with musicians. You know, me, sure, I think that'd be awesome to be famous. Like,
Do you?
well, I don't know,
Do you wanna
dude.
be
You know, and that's.
Like legit question.
I'm
'Cause
happy you
like,
asked that. Like,
I'd rather
I'm.
be like wealthy and successful and no one knows who I am, as opposed to like a TikTok star who, you know, makes good money for 2 to 3 years but then just flames out. So Mike, appreciate you coming out today. I want to
Thanks for
start
having
with,
me.
because there's people who haven't read the article that I wrote about you about a year
Sure.
and a half ago now
Yeah, dude.
on my website. Could you give them a little context and a little background about what kind of music specifically that you write, produce, perform, etc.? And just again, tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man, cool. Music-wise, that's kind of been my main focus lately. And you know, I've been playing the guitar since I was 10 years old. So that's kind of my main weapon of choice. And a lot of my writing is centralized around a guitar, whether it be like I start with like the licks or the melodies or what have you. And then I kind of build it off of that. You know, anything that has a rhythm, I think I can play. You know, I like to think that I can play and I can write, and then I can certainly produce, and I can sit back and I can do kind of like drum kit stuff. That's lately more how I've kind of developed the sound of my songs. You know, whether that be like I'm putting together like a demo or like just like a simple beat or something like that. You know, very poppy. I love a good pop song, man. I love pop songs. I love rock and roll. I love country music. I love Americana. I love punk. You know, my favorite musicians, I guess, like growing up, you know, were like James Taylor, John Mayer. John Mayer is my favorite musician, I'd say, of all time. Michael Jackson, Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, Blink-182. Blink-182, I love Blink-182, dude. Like, yeah, I love Blink-182. So I kind of have that weird punky emo rock side to me too. You know, I grew up listening to all sorts of stuff. R&B, man. We were just me and my girlfriend the other day. We were just talking about my top 3 favorite R&B songs. Omarion, one of the best R&B songs of all time. And then obviously "Let Me Love You" by Mario, great song.
I have that in my iTunes.
Dude, yeah, great, dude. Yeah, and it's probably an MP3 too. That's crazy as far. Yeah, I've been doing that, and I've been trying to hone in on a little bit more of my producing skills, which is, you know, it's tricky. You know, it takes time. You know, that stuff. But I've never looked at myself fully as like a producer, like an engineer. I like to know what it is that's going on so that I can communicate those types of things and those types of ideas that I have, you know, effectively. Especially when because like if I have something in my head, like an idea or something like that, it means one thing to me, right? But then how do I communicate that to the other person who I'm working with? You know, especially in like a technical setting, right? So it's like, oh, if I want the guitar to sound a certain way, and I say some random word, you know, shiny, or like I want it to sound like a purple, you know, it's like, well, what does that even mean, right? You know, you kind of have to be able to communicate, well, I want it to do this. Okay, well, so, you know, you want maybe a little bit more reverb, or you want the high, you know, the EQ a little bit higher on the high end. You kind of have to learn that. As far as just kind of a transition and, you know, to grow as an artist. But I think, you know, lately, which is kind of cool, and at least where I feel like where I'm at right now is I've just kind of honed in on like my craft and what I can do, and really where I want to be with it all. I think primarily, you know, I define myself as a singer-songwriter, right? Or just a songwriter in that sense. Certainly, yeah, a producer, but not in the conventional sense of where I'm actually like hands-on, like, you know, crazy into the DAWs, digital audio workshops, you know, whether it be like Logic or Pro Tools or, you know, whatever. I'm certainly not the engineer on staff, right? But I'm the ideas guy. You know, I come with the song. I come with it, you know, the lyrics, everything written, everything composed in my head, on paper, wherever it may be. And then I kind of come with the vision, you know, of what the song is, where it needs to go, you know, where I want to take it. You know, allow that process to evolve, allow that idea to evolve, and you will, you know, you'll inevitably get the best product out of it. Maybe not inevitably, hopefully. More often than not, I'd think, if you do it right, if you do it with an open mind, but also if you hold true to what you want, right? You know, so
Certainly.
Yeah.
Can we kind of make some delineations between, because you identify
Sure.
as a singer-songwriter.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, we've talked about this in the past, that there's engineers as well.
Yeah.
There's people who are more audio-based.
Yeah.
I mean, music really is a production, right?
Absolutely.
Like for me as a author, like I write the book, but then I also have people who edit it, and then I have
Right.
people who create the book cover. Like it's
Yeah.
a process. Could you break that down for people when it comes to the music, like production process, as far as, okay, I specialize in writing the songs and performing them versus engineering? Because I know you had talked about there's a money aspect to it. You have to
Oh, sure,
find
dude.
talented people
Yeah.
to create that music. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Like my process and the process that I've kind of held true to, or how I've developed it is, you know, where it all kind of started, I guess, you know, back on the guitar, right? So I will structurally put together an entire song usually if I want it to be my own, or if it's a good idea, or sometimes it just comes out of me, right? I mean, certain tones, certain chords, certain keys, certain, you know, parts of music theory pertain and associate, you know, intrinsically to human emotion, right? I mean, some would say that music is the most purest form of emotion because it's so technical and it's almost programmable, if that's a word. But you get that reaction, like you get that emotional reaction no matter whatever song you listen to, whether it's like good or a bad song, like you have an emotional reaction to music. And that's like cool. Like I think that's just kind of cool. Like I think any song you listen to, you'll have an emotional reaction to it no matter what, because it equates to emotion. So, you know, sometimes they come out of you, man, and you want those, especially as a songwriter, you want those. You know, I try to hold on to that. If you really need to say something, say it, and say it with a song, because that's never failed me. If you have those types of kind of bursts of emotion that you can then consolidate and perfect and put into some type of, you know, medium of music or something like that, or art. You know, art is expressive, right? Certainly, you know, try to enhance your innate creativity in that sense, right? But then, you know, obviously, yeah, there's a technical side to it too. There's a step-by-step process of it. So, you know, I like to get the song in its entirety, like I said, off of just my guitar. I mean, I think, you know, you can arrange an entire song right off, you know, just with the guitar and then vocal. And then once you have the song written, you know, you can either start building it from like a track by track standpoint, or you can build it again outside of the studio and, you know, go with more or less like a live performance aspect of it, where you actually have musicians, you know, if you want to have musicians, right? Like, you know, there have been songs that I've done with producers that have been one take. There have been songs that I've done with producers that have been punches, as they're called. You know, that's a very common technique, especially if you have somebody who, you know, you can't sing, or, you know, can't really do an entire song. I mean, it's actually very hard, you know, vocally on a person to do a full song. Like, I mean, singing is a workout. I mean, singing correctly, if you're singing correctly, you're using muscles and it should be effortless, but those muscles should be trained. It's just a vibrato, it's a vibration in the vocal cords, right? Anyone can sing in that sense. Literally any human can sing. If you have vocal cords, you can sing. You might not be able to sing well, but you can train yourself to sing well. But then you might just not have a good tone. You know, I used to be obsessed with this idea of like perfection, but like, dude, nothing is perfect. Literally nothing is perfect. Like, like what is perfection, I guess. I mean, math is perfect, I shouldn't say that, but finance, right? Balancing is perfection, but like, art and like music and those types of, I think there's beauty in the imperfection of emotion, because it's not perfect, it's complicated, it's convoluted, it's chaotic. So I think the best way that you can, represent that in the recording process is to try to get like raw emotion, raw takes, really just feel the music, get a good take. You obviously want it to be technically sound, but there are ways that you can, manipulate that in the mixing process too, so it's kind of, it's weird, creating is sometimes not always just a single process. It's multiple processes with one. You might have to step outside of, the scope of where you're at within, what you're actually doing to where you want to be and things like that, and kind of add and subtract as you go. But if I want to do something, if I want to record something, I can record it in my apartment. I usually do my guitar, because I'm pretty particular with my guitar. And then I'm getting better at vocals, but ideally you want to have, you want to have soundproof, and you want to have good, you don't want to have echo, you don't want to have to manipulate it too much. Like as I'm saying, if you can get a good take, you can get that technically from all the preparation and what have you. I have a couple singles coming out right now that I'm working on, and they are my own. They're fully composed by me. I don't want anyone else to be on them, right? I mean, I want them to be my songs, right? If somebody wants to sing, I'm sure that's cool, it'd be awesome. But from the vision that I have, at least, they're my songs, right? They're from me. I'm the singer, the songwriter, the artist, the performer on the songs. And now I'm getting to the point where I can take, recordings and certain demos and certain sounds and things like that, and we can kind of use those, because that's all just MIDI. You don't really need crazy recording equipment for that type of stuff. I will go to a producer, and my producer's great, and we're working on a couple things right now. So what I've gone to him with is recorded tracks that I've done, that I've edited, that I've built. They're not just the first take stuff. It's not demo stuff. It's the good take that I want to build the song with. And he'll do what he needs to do with it. He might come back to me and say like, "Yo, dude, like this just isn't working." Like, he might come back and say like, "Okay, man, like we might need to do this, 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 and this." Just structurally, maybe something has, like, maybe I left reverb on this, the thing or something like that. Maybe I don't know. I mean, there's things that can go wrong, obviously, but I'll leave it up to him to do most of the mixing on those types of things, because I trust his professionalism and things like that. I mean, I usually pay people for what they do if they want to get paid. I think it's important to pay top dollar for things. I think having that investment in yourself, and taking that investment in myself, I look at it as an investment, because ultimately what I want to get out of it is something for myself. So I have to put in that money, I have to put in that time, and that investment. I think that's important. There's communication between anybody who's investing in the product itself, which is the song, right? I'm not just going to people to just get it over with, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do that. I want to take my time with it. And then you just ultimately let him do his job. You let him do his process at that point, right? And he'll come to me, and he'll come back with ideas, and he'll come back with things that whether it's technical or musically or whatever that he suggests, and then you kind of just go back and forth, man. I mean, it's business, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what do you want to accomplish? I want to accomplish getting this song done, and I want to write the song. It's written. I want to record it, and I want to make a product out of it. I want people to listen to it, and you just kind of have to do it, and you learn as you go, man. I mean, which is cool. Like, it's like that's kind of the evolution of it all, man. I mean, it's like some songs have different ways to be built, and you kind of learn that. Some songs are just have a different way of coming to life. Some songs can come from just a single, 6-note riff or something like that. I mean, a lot of sample music is very successful, nowadays, because it draws and it picks from, already existing markets, and certainly there's the argument that that's not creative. It's exploiting the creative process, and I think to that advantage, that's kind of creative. I mean, it's problem solving, right? I mean, whenever I'm in an interview and somebody asks me like, what's your, like, one of your biggest attributes, right? Yeah, like somebody asks you like, okay, what do you bring to the table? Let's say I'm a creative problem solver, right? Some people look at creative as like new, and I get that. That to me is truly creation, right? When you create something, like it's new, it's something fresh, it's new. I think we are creative beings by nature. So being analytical and doing what you want to do and just being forthcoming and directive. But I think there's, if it doesn't strike a chord with people, is it good? You know what I'm saying? I mean, is it worth it to do it all yourself if it kind of comes off that way? Like you did it all by yourself, and like you did it, it's almost lonely to me in that sense. So
I want to talk more about the writing process of music.
Hell yeah.
So for me, like I'm going over my audiobook right now. Actually, I just got the first cut back from the audio guys, and I'll be honest. At times it's almost like cringeworthy to be like, oh geez, this is like what I sound like in the voice of another person. As a musician, how much do you deal with like what you write and what you put in the studio and then what you ultimately produce? How much do you kind of quarrel with, man, people are going to listen to this, people are going to know this? Because we've talked about like transparency, autobiography. Like for me,
dude.
At a certain point, you just got to let it go, tell the story, it is what it is, truth wins out.
Yeah,
but
man.
How much do we sort of, not even mask that truth, but doctor it in a way to where we're not necessarily revealing everything, but we're still conveying the story or the message that needs to be told?
I would say like literally 100%.
No or all it, what would the term be? Just full transparency.
No, on the contrary.
On the contrary.
No transparency.
No transparency.
I think all humans are like that. I think all humans have a shield, a defense. Maybe not though. Maybe that's just speaking from experience. You know what I'm saying? I would peg the question. I would wonder, if there's a person in this world who can literally say like somebody or something or a group of people know everything about me. Everything about me. You know what I'm saying? Everything is a very big word. I mean, it's an infinite word, right? So, to answer your question personally, like, yeah, man, I mean, all the time. I think all humans do that. We're all self-conscious. We all have that barrier between us. It's a survival technique to me. It's awareness. It's a sense of vigilance, but it can certainly lead down the path of like paranoia, right, or just anxiety or depression. But those characteristics of the human mind and of the human itself, they're embedded in us, in our DNA. It's a survival technique. I think, being self-conscious, being aware, and to kind of nitty-gritty answer your question, maybe push it and ask the question of, well, why is it happening? I think that's because there's so much shit going on. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're aware of everything. Like, look at around you. I mean, there's so much in this room, not only, right? So then to expand that on on a grander scale of like, I'm gonna post this, and there's the potential of everybody in the world seeing this, right? So you gotta now be aware and vigilant of all of that. And that is just crushing, dude. I think that's crushing. I think that is the issue with anxiety and depression, and certainly, experiences of anxiety that I've had personally. That's one of my biggest fears, a fear of anything that you're aware of that could possibly happen. I mean, you could sit there and you could say like, okay, this isn't going to get liked. Nobody's going to like this. My ex-girlfriend's not going to like this. My mom's probably going to be the only person that like this. My dad's not going to like this because he disapproves of me. Like, this girl that I talked to in high school and college for like 2 weeks, she's probably going to like it and then like unlike it. And then, maybe this one girl that I had a crush on, you could go down that fucking rabbit hole all day.
It's not healthy.
It's not.
It's not.
But it happens, and it's hard to kind of get away from that because I talked it out there, but in your mind, it's just constantly going, and it's constantly just, you always hear that voice in your head, right? That's the voice of reason. Because yes, it's certainly reasonable to think that all of those things are going to happen, you know? Yeah, I make a post and my mom's the only one that likes it. That's happened to me before, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you get over that. You just kind of have to get over that hump. And you have to, you know, you have to take those failures. I just read a book, another book, it's called Failing Forward. And it's all about conquering that fear of failure. You have to take the idea of failure and almost use it against itself. Understand that it's going to happen. Understand that in order to learn, in order to grow, you have to make a mistake. Because in order for the mistake to even be a mistake, you have to make that mistake, right? I mean, hashtag How I Met Your Mother, right?
What do you mean?
Lily. That's a quote from Lily, and I always use that. And part of making a mistake is failing. I mean, not miserably failing, like, okay, a 45 is, a 45 is a fail, right? But you still got 45% right. You know, it's not a 0. Like, it's not like you didn't do, and maybe the next time you'll do 46, you know? Mm-hmm. Maybe if you go to St. Thomas, you'll get a 45 and then it'll be bumped up to a C+. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think
Sure,
that's very
sure.
optimistic. I'm more cynical than that.
Oh, I'm a skeptic too, man, and that's the hardest part about it is accepting that shit's gonna happen and just getting over it, because you drive and you keep going and you keep crunching it out, you keep grinding and you keep polishing. Something good is gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and lately, I guess from a personal standpoint, I've learned that the hustle is very, very important, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the consistency is very important. The process is important, man. The consistency in the process is important, because then that consistency allows you to kind of, you know, make different directions and you know, make a turn here if you need to, kind of adapt here. But you always have that process in the back of your mind, and you've kind of built off that, right? So the hustle and the production is very important.
How do you define success then as a musician? Like,
oh, sure, dude.
Well, yeah, man. The process, absolutely. I think,
yeah.
Dude, absolutely. I always tell people.
Absolutely.
My blog 5 years ago when I first started out, it was just like me complaining about like getting dumped and shit.
Sure.
Just super lame stuff.
Well, dude, people relate to that.
Well, people relate to it, but now it's evolved. But it only evolved because I did things. Like you're saying, you have to go out there, and that's the value in the 45 out of 100 that you talk about. So then what is, to me, what I love, what success is the process. This is like part of the process. Dude. It's a constant evolution. But what about for you as a musician? Like, I'm not a musician. I want to know, like, do musicians, where do they find that equilibrium of, like, I've put in the work and I've achieved not necessarily my full potential, but something?
You know, it obviously depends on every person. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to answer that from a personal standpoint. And to answer it on the most basic form, like, I love when I can write something and people will, like, sing along. You know, I mean, I find success in that. Mm-hmm. If somebody listens to my shit and then they sing along, or if they like it or whatever, that's a success. That's a win, right? I think it's important to benchmark success. I think there's different levels of success, but obviously, I think every musician wants to make money off their music. I mean, I think that's the end goal, right? I mean, I think that's the sustainable success, right? Like, I mean, I'm not gonna like retire knowing that my mom liked my post. Like, that's not enough to make me like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a win for me. Yeah. But it's not like, you know, it's not enough to like say like, oh, I've done it. Like, I'm a musician. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
so
obviously. Give me something a little more realistic. Like,
sure,
you know,
okay.
Because percentage-wise, only very few musicians are going to quote-unquote make it. So success, like, hey man, I got the Malibu beach house next to Jason Mraz or Jason Derulo, or like, is success like, dude, I own the Minneapolis-St. Paul market and like I sell out all my shows locally. What would be a good benchmark?
Yeah, dude. Well, yeah. I mean, I think the dividing factor there is like fame and success, right? Like, you can have fame and not be successful, and you can be successful and not have fame, right? that's certainly a stigma I think that comes with musicians. You know, me, with me, sure, I think that'd be awesome to be famous. Like,
Do you?
well, I don't know,
Do you wanna
dude.
be
You know, and that's,
Like legit questions.
I'm happy you
would-
asked that. Like,
I'd rather be like wealthy and successful and no one knows who I am, as opposed to like a TikTok star who, you know, makes good money for 2 to 3 years but then just flames out.
I would be famous. I would rather be famous.
You would rather be famous?
Well, I would like fame. Not, I guess I'd not rather. I would like to be famous. I think I would like it.
Why do you say that? That's very interesting.
Because what I want to do with my life, I think, requires it. If I want to play shows, if I want to, play shows and make money off of it, which, like I guess I said that was my end goal. So I think, realistically, I think if, most musicians, if I had, to pinpoint it, would want to make money. It'd be sustainable, right? If that's the most sustainable goal, I think there's some type of fame that comes to that, just logically. I think you have to kind of get to a certain level, right? So I would accept fame in that. Do I chase fame? No, you can't do that. I mean, you can't chase the envy, or excuse me, not the envy, the vanity, right? You can't, or maybe the envy, but you can't chase the vanity of it, because I think that's sinful, right? I mean, that's ego, and I just think that's negative. I think you're always going to lose in that sense. I like music, I like creating, I like doing things that are artistic because it gives me an outlet. It gives me an outlet to truly be transparent, Maybe if I'm not even being transparent, maybe that's the whole point. A metaphor, you know what I'm saying? Maybe that's enough to kind of fill that emotional void of life. But success, yeah, man. I mean, success can be measured on so many different levels. Tangibly, I would love to get millions of views on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? I would love for my shit to go viral. I would love to get a #1 hit. I mean, I think any songwriter shoots for that. Yeah. On a micro level, yeah, man. I mean, I put out music and I garnish, views here and there. But it's also more or less not about the views and the measurements and all the data. It's kind of also about just what you want to do and how you want to do it, and then the ability to do it. Measuring success statistically can kind of bring you down that wormhole,
Yeah, man, I'm going to push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
Only because I see so many artists, musicians, especially in I love rap music, I like
Mhm.
hip hop. But those guys, they talk a lot about getting to a certain level or a certain threshold of
Okay,
fame.
I feel you.
And then after that, one of my favorite artists is G-Eazy, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you follow the trajectory of his career, it's come up, come up, come up. And then it's boom, I've reached the peak of the mountain.
There's a peak.
But then he comes down. And a lot of
Yep.
an album he released last year is I felt bad for the guy. You could tell there's a lot of pain and suffering in there.
Bro, man,
So,
that's
I really don't think that, hey, I want to be famous. Again, I'm never going to be famous because I'm an author. But you legitimately could because you are
But I mean, that's
a musician. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be successful and I want you to make money and I want you to have that Malibu beach house. But I don't want you to be famous in the sense of I think that would really cripple you. Because you and I are both guys who I think deal with a bit of anxiety and that's a tough path to walk.
well, and that is kind of like a bargain. I certainly could accept that bargain. And I get what you're saying by this idea of fame and peaking, right? That's physics, man. That's that's the stock market, right? There's always a downswing to an upswing. There's always an upswing to a downswing. I mean, that's derivative, right? Is that inevitable? Are you saying it's inevitable? Is that
You become famous?
Well, no. Are you saying that if fame is something that follows your life, is it inevitable that it will come to an end,
No, I think
in
fame
bad
is
fashion?
everlasting.
Sure. Okay.
I think if you have a really good, even year-long stretch, you will
Yeah.
be forever famous, especially in your circles that you run in, or your hometown, for
Yeah.
example. But but it just seems like an investment with diminishing returns. Like if I'm going to invest in, and you're not saying this or advocating for this, but I'm going to invest in like reaching that pinnacle, the downward trajectory after a certain point that you'd be on. Again, like you think of the G-Eazy's, you think of like, I mean, there's a ton of case studies.
Oh well, dude, yeah. I mean,
I don't wish that on anyone.
that's the cancel culture nowadays. It's perpetuated at this point. It's the tragedy story, right? It's you know, I mean, yeah, I'm right there with you. Can it be avoidable? I don't know. Who knows, man? I mean, you know, that's a inner battle of self and ego. I can't say, and like, yeah, I mean, you read me from an outside standpoint, and I almost appreciate that you say that, like, because I don't know, man. I don't know how I would do if I was ever famous, because you look at people and you look at what fame does to people, and just how it so drastically changes their life.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So like, I would love to be married someday, right?
Well, yeah.
Let's say I'm like 35, 40, and for whatever reason I've reached a bit of success and fame. But like maybe all of a sudden women kind of like treat me differently, women like outside of my household, you know, like
Sure.
who infringe upon my marriage.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah.
I would love to sit here, Mike, and be like, man, I have these great ethics and morals, and I would never entertain any of those thoughts. At the end of the day, I'm a human being. And like to sit there and be like, I would not even at all be flattered, that would be a lie. And so like that's something you have to deal with as
Oh, sure, dude. Yeah,
and that's why I say like, dude, I would love, you know, make that money,
Yeah.
have the wealth, success. But when people know who you are, all of a sudden you become a bit more of like this beacon of attraction for, you know, male and female. You know?
Yeah,
And
dude.
that can be. I just know for me as a guy who's dealt with things in the past like anyone else,
Sure.
I wouldn't want to have to necessarily deal with that.
That is what it is, right? I mean, you know, now would I be, again, like, would I be happy kind of being that behind the scenes guy, like singer-songwriter, who just fucking rakes in millions of dollars, like, and, you know, isn't the face, right? Hell yeah, dude. I mean, if some, you know, pop star or whatever came to me and was like, I want to write your song, or I want to do a cover of your song or whatever, and, you know, I would get royalties on that if I wrote it, right? If I'm the songwriter on it. If I want to be a songwriter for another artist, dude, hell yeah, I would do that. I certainly pride myself in my performing and my ability to sing. I think that's just something that I've always enjoyed. But fundamentally, and I think what I could ultimately, like, in my mind, in most confidence, build a career off of would be my songwriting, hands down. Like, just writing, and maybe not performing it, maybe just, you know, letting other people perform it and trying to find that connection that way. You know, some of the best songs that I've written have poured out of me. You know, I've had those moments where the 3-minute, you know, song is written in 3 minutes, you know, and it's done. It's there. It's all structured. It's set. It's done. It just flows out of you. It just pours out of you. But having that with like somebody else would be even better. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's kind of what I yearn for ultimately, is being able to connect with somebody. So yeah, dude, it's super metaphysical to like think about fame when you don't have fame. You know, if you crave it or if you want it, some people who have fame know how to handle it very well. I mean, I think, you know, I think it's a matter of being able to handle it. You know, I think it kind of takes a vigilance of all of that, or kind of delusion or illusion, right? I mean, if you have everybody watching you, if you have, you know, people digging into your history and your back and, you know, and things like that. I mean, I think it takes a certain level of person to like not only know what to expect, but then to be able to handle it, you know. And again, very
I don't
metaphysical.
think anyone is able to prepare or expect anything along those lines. You know
Well,
what I mean? Like I can talk. I mean, okay, I'm trying to think.
what if they're born into it? Because like, dude, I look at somebody like Kim Kardashian. I think Kim Kardashian handles fame very well.
Yeah.
I think somebody like Dwayne Johnson handles fame very well. Mark Zuckerberg handles fame very well.
I mean, I'm going to generalize. Of course, are there going to be
Yeah.
outliers who handle that fame well?
Certainly.
Of course, but do I think that normally people are able to? Because it's like, oh,
Absolutely not. Yeah, dude.
Again,
Because
I don't want that for someone. I think that'd be a
Oh,
tough
sure.
deal to-
Well, dude, yeah, no, and I mean, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. I wouldn't wish misfortune upon anyone.
So Mike, I want to give you a bit of a chance to tell people who, you know, want to work with you or want to check out your music. Could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, you know, what you do, how they can get in contact with you, and of course we'll throw it all on the screen or in the links to make it easy for people.
Yeah, man, absolutely. No, thanks for having me. You can find me, you can contact me if you really just want to like jam or collab or whatever, write. You know, when I work with other people, I prefer to write with other people. I prefer to kind of build from the ground up, you know, or take an idea and kind of build off of it. At Michelangelo is my user tag for pretty much all my social media. That's Michaelanegelo, Michelangelo. My stage name is Michael Lane. I go by Michael Lane. And you know, so yeah, you'll see me out there. Get in contact with me any way you want. Slide into the DMs if you want. You know, I mean, I have an email. You know, I have a Gmail. But yeah, it's pretty much Michelangelo across the board there. If anybody, you know, wants to do something, man, I'm always down to jam and get it going. You know, so.
Guys, Mike is one of my absolute favorite interviews. We went to high school together. Always just a down-to-earth, humble guy. Make sure you check out his music. Make sure you check out the article that I wrote on him about 1.5 years ago. I'll put the link to that in the description as well. We'll see you guys in the next video.